Next slide. And so it's worthwhile going back, as we're talking culminating events, just to go back and take a look at a historical culminating event, since we're taking a peek at history. Everybody probably recognizes Pearl Harbor. This is 18 months before Pearl Harbor. Interesting enough, 18 years prior to that, go ahead and build twice for me. So that's Brigadier General William Billy Mitchell, a staunch early advocate of air power. In 1924, he wrote a report, and you can read what he wrote there. 18 years before Pearl Harbor happened, he predicted Pearl Harbor. He was off by a little bit. He was off by 18 minutes. The actual attack, it was on a Sunday morning. He says the attack's going to happen on a Sunday morning at 7:30 a.m. The first bombs actually dropped and the torpedoes were dropped at 7:48 a.m. on a Sunday morning. He actually got closer with Clark Field in the Philippines, different time zone. He said 10:40, it was actually 10:30. And he did it just based on geography and math. You know, how long do airplanes fly? They want to take off of the carriers, launch from carriers at sunrise. They need to fly. He predicted the targets. We kind of ignored him. He was a bit of a zealot. He was an air power zealot. He was actually court-martialed by the Army. He was ultimately given... it was misreported once as the Congressional Medal of Honor. It wasn't the Medal of Honor, but he did receive very high honors posthumously for kind of his air power advocacy. But we didn't listen to him. Go ahead and get to the next slide. And of course, that's what happened on that Sunday morning in 1942, December 7th, 1942, that day that will live in infamy. And we didn't listen. 18 years prior, he told us, with only 18 minutes of error. If Admiral Hirohito had said, hey, on Sunday morning at 7:30, we're going to bomb Pearl Harbor, we might have listened to Admiral Hirohito. Or actually Admiral Yamamoto. It was the Emperor Hirohito. We might have listened to the Emperor of Hirohito if Hirohito, the Emperor of Japan, had said, we're going to bomb Japan, just so you know. We might have listened. What if Chairman Xi tells us what he's going to do? Would we pay attention? Next slide. So this date of 2027, actually the closer we get to it, the less worried that I am. This date has changed significantly over time. So when Chairman Xi first came to power, first seized power, and he's now rewritten the Constitution. Normally, chairmen can only serve for a 10-year term. He has rewritten the Constitution, so he can serve as long as he wants to. And his father lived into his 90s, if I'm not mistaken. So Chairman Xi could be around for a long time. And he's also systematically eliminated all of his political opposition in the Chinese Communist Party. So he has a lockhold. And so we don't talk about China as a nation. We talk about the Chinese Communist Party. There's a single authoritarian rule that dictates everything. It's authoritarian dictatorship. And by the Chinese Communist Party, since there is no political opposition, it's pretty much whatever Chairman Xi thinks. So that's why we can talk about what one person thinks, and that's why we're often trying to communicate directly with him. Look, don't start World War III, because we got the B-21. So originally in 2013, he gave the PLA, he says, I want a modern military. And then about the 2019 timeframe, he gave it 2035. And then he moved that date up to 2032. And then he's moved it forward. So he has moved it back in time to give a more aggressive target because he is afraid of an inability. And so that 2027 date is the latest date. And I'm going to show you the growth that China has made towards that 2027, and it is absolutely staggering. So go to the next slide for me, please. So here's and it's a bit incorrect historically to talk about a reunification of Taiwan. Except for a brief period of time, Taiwan has been an independent country. It's actually spent more time under Japanese control than it has mainland China control. It was the only reason it came under China. It was actually part of the negotiated treaty at the end of World War II that China got. But then, of course, when China had their revolution, Mao Zedong, and then they, the nationalist China fell back onto the island of Formosa. So it's not correct to talk about a reunification. That's the language that Chairman Xi wants us to use. It's actually a forced unification. It would be a more proper way to talk about it. But here's the challenge. It's only about 90 miles across the strait here. So there's we don't talk about, normally you have international airspace or international, you have waters, exclusive economic zones out to 200 nautical miles. You got 12 miles off the coast. There's an ADIZ that's typically, out there several hundred miles. You don't have that territory there, so we talk about the median line. And I'll show you the stats of how frequently the People's Liberation Army is violating that line. But here's the challenge, is how do you get all your forces from here over to here? That's why Taichung Airport sits right there. And this is a translation. So this is a screenshot from an internal People's Liberation Army plan. And you can see all these ports here. That's part of the challenge. There's only 5 deep water ports on the island of Taiwan. Of course, they're heavily defended, which is a good idea, right? If you want peace, prepare for war. But China's got a plan for that. Next slide. So you don't need a deep water port. So this is a new satellite imagery from just a couple weeks ago. These are relocatable piers. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So these are each independent ships, these little gantry things here. So you can actually sail across the 90 miles. You link them up, and you can go about a mile out into open water. So you actually don't need a deep water port. And you just bring up a roll-on, roll-off, and tanks just roll right off there onto the beach wherever you want. They're actively doing this right now in plain sight. Next slide. This is their shipbuilding capacity. They have 200, there's dozens state-owned shipyards in China. We have 4. They have 230 times the capacity. Just one shipyard in China last year alone, in 2024, built more tonnage of ships than the U.S. did since the end of World War II. In 1 year, they built more ships than we have built by tonnage, which is what matters, than we built since the end of World War II. Next slide. And they're not just, we used to count, well, it's just cheap China technology. We've got that technological advantage like we had over the Soviets. It's not. China is now a modern force. This is a stealth frigate. They just commissioned this ship in January. This is a frigate. It's designed for anti-submarine warfare. So that's one of the advantages that we still have over the People's Liberation Army Navy, is our submarine technology. Unfortunately, the Straits of Taiwan are very, very shallow. Pretty easy to find submarines. And if you want to go after submarines, this is how you do it. These are stealth frigates specifically designed for area denial anti-submarine warfare. Very, very modern. Next slide. And they have the capacity to build lots of these. And so this was the order of battle in the Pacific. We're April now, so this was 2 years ago. This was in March of 23. And already you can see, just a comparison. These are not all of our forces. This is just our forces across the Air Force and Navy that are deployed to the Indo-PACOM theater. So this is what is underneath the PACOM commander. But we are vastly outnumbered by the People's Liberation Army. Next slide. This is what is projected, the intelligence, unclassified intelligence prediction for 2027. So go ahead and, Mary, go back for me, and then go forward, and do it one more time. And forward. There we go. And the important thing is that these are 5th gen. So these Type 055, these are stealth destroyers. Those are what are designed to go out and protect the aircraft carriers now. So the J-35 is a stealth, 5th gen stealth carrier capable fighter that the People's Liberation Army has. Advanced submarines, hypersonic missiles. This force is specifically designed to counter our strengths. And for them to be, for Chairman Xi, when he wants to, when he says, well, now's the time, and China is going to emerge from 6,000 years of history and exert its dominance, its regional dominance, and then rewrite the world order, it has the capability to do that if it wants to. Next slide. And they're aggressively doing that. So this is the largest naval operation in the Pacific since World War II, happened last December, over 3 days. It was, the island of Taiwan was completely encircled. There were picket lines set out here by the People's Liberation Army Navy. Normally, so for example, when we do RIMPAC, we announce years in advance, hey, we're about to do RIMPAC, big exercise, coalition, allies, we're all going to partner together, and it's going to happen 3 years from now. We plan for it, everybody knows it's going to happen, people steer out of the way. China just did this without telling the world what it's doing. It could have been the start. In fact, for a while there, it looked like the invasion had started. Because the Navy just showed up and they surrounded Taiwan. Did they just blockade the island? So that was the largest naval operation, close to 100 Navy ships in coordination. Here are all of the events since 2021, all the operations, to include, just last month as well, all these dots right here. Again, unannounced until it started, the People's Liberation Army Navy put 3 ships between Australia and New Zealand and started launching live missiles, doing live fire exercises. Now, they did tell Australia when they started firing. They said, hey, oh, by the way, we're going to be out here doing a live fire exercise. Australia had to reroute commercial air traffic that was already in the air to avoid the area. Again, no warning whatsoever. After they got done firing those missiles there, those 3 ships actually then sailed all the way around Australia before they went home. Again, sending a very, very deliberate message. Again, I don't like that. It's not a reunification, it's a forced unification. Next slide. And so if we look at, in the, really, just since 2022, this is the number of incursions, so that, again, that air defense identification zone. So in the case of Taiwan, it's the median line, so 90 miles across. We drew a line right down the middle, and we said, okay, over here, that's the People's Republic of China. Over here, it's the island of Taiwan's. And it's just what they're trying to do is desensitize us from incursions into that. So we're into hundreds. And you can see that China does it in response or provocatively as they see fit. This little decrease right here was right after the election. And then they can ramp back up anytime they want. Next slide. And so this is where I'm going to bring it back to the Aerospace Valley. It's real easy to say, okay, well, all right, so that's Taiwan. Even if they're not ethnic Chinese, or there's a different heritage, and they're not quite Chinese, they're still Eastern Asian, and so maybe we should just kind of let that go and not start World War III over the island of Taiwan. 95% of the advanced microchips are built in Taiwanese fabs by TSMC. TSMC is something different that we do up at Edwards. TSMC. 95% of the advanced microchips. Now we're in the process of building some fabs here. We don't have them. So one of the things that we have tried to do as artificial intelligence, again, we're one of those inflection points, a decisive decade for another reason, is we are denying the export controls on advanced microchips to China. Do you think Chairman Xi would have any qualms whatsoever if they took over Taiwan of denying access to those microchips now that they are writing the rules to the US? So it does matter for lots of reasons. China has built at a staggering speed. The rate at which they've built all those ships and built that Navy and built that Air Force, built that rocket force, built the hypersonics missiles, has been staggering. But they do more than that. They are also targeting our critical infrastructure right here. We know that the Chinese have infiltrated our electrical grids. There is Chinese malware on all the SCADA systems that control electric power communications. The first indication that we have that the invasion of Taiwan has started is probably that the lights go out and that the cellular network doesn't work anymore. If it did work and you could still log into your bank account, you might not actually see anything because all the records might be scrambled. It might be confusing. There's a way to actually attack us without attacking us. Next slide. And so just as an indication, it wouldn't be that easy. So if you remember that blackout in 2003 that affected the entire Northeast, and so we're talking about the Eastern Interconnect, there's 3 different regions. When you put current down wires, they tend to sag. So during the summertime when the wind's not blowing, the electrical wires can sag. And if it turns out that there's trees there and they sag into a tree, you can actually short out a line. So that actually happened in Ohio. This little line going up to Cleveland sagged into the line, so that one came off, was kicked offline because it shorted out. Not a big deal, pretty resilient, right? But then the next one sagged because it was carrying more current. It kicked offline, so now more current is flowing this way. That one sagged, that one sagged. Now all of this power is flowing just from there. That actually sets off a chain reaction of reactive power being out of sync with the rest of the grid and leads to a rapid domino effect of the entire grid going down. It's fairly balanced, finely balanced all the time. And if you disrupt it, the entire system can collapse. And that's exactly what happened. Ultimately, 55 million people lost power. 100 people died during this from the power loss, and it was only for a couple hours. Think about if the electrical grid goes down for 6 months, because that could happen. Now, the system's not as fragile as it was in 2003, but that was a tree. That was just a natural, warm summer day. Everybody turned their air conditioners on. The line's going. Now, we don't have a lot of trees around here, but there is Chinese malware in the SCADA systems on our grid. They are in all of our critical infrastructure. Next slide. So China has more cyber operators than the rest of the world combined. There was an article in The Economist last week, Tracking the Hacking is what it's titled, that overviews all of the operations that China's done everywhere that they are, and by a person for person. In fact, earlier, it was actually at the start of March, we're now in April, but we just indicted 12 named People's Liberation Army cyber operators. We indicted them in federal court. Now, of course, they're living in China, so unless they ever come here, we're probably never actually going to. But we've identified them. Go ahead and build for me. So this is a list since 2024 of all the cyber attacks, named cyber attacks, known cyber attacks from China, originating from China. The designation that we use, typhoons are attacks that originate from China. Dust storms are ones that come from Iran. Blizzards are cyber operations that start from Russia. These are the named operations. Go ahead and build for me, and I'll mention just a couple of them. So Volt Typhoon, we've known about since 2019, 2020 timeframe. This is Chinese malware in all of our critical infrastructure: water, electrical, communications, oil, air traffic control. They're in the SCADA systems. We know that they're there. We can't actually get them out. So that's Volt Typhoon. We've known about that one for several years now. What just emerged late last fall, Salt Typhoon. Salt Typhoon, we know it's been going on since 2021. This is 9 different US telecoms companies have been acknowledged that the Chinese have gotten access to their servers and have complete phone records of all of the phone calls from those telecommunications, to include my government phone, to include when he was candidate for president, candidate Trump, Mr. Trump. They have all of his records for the last 4 years. Vice President Kamala Harris records they had. The vice presidential candidate at the time, Mr. Vance, they had his phone records. So they know every single person that every government phone, as well as everybody else's, has had. That's That is deeply concerning, particularly as you look, just how often we are using messaging apps and other types of things. There's concern about if they're CIA operatives, and who have they called, and who have they called in China, and so maybe that we've just uncovered human. So that is Salt Typhoon, and we still can't kick them out. We know that there's 9 telecommunications companies that are affected. We know that they're still in the system. Once you have admin privileges, it's very, very easy to hide. This is what is known as advanced persistent incursions. And it's something that all those cyber operators in China are very, very adept at doing. The newest one was just named last month, Silk Typhoon. This is China's cyber operations targeting our cloud services. Anybody use Microsoft Teams for anything? Amazon Web Services? All these cloud services that we're becoming reliant on, this is the targeted operations against cloud services. China is doing it. Next slide. And there's a lot of them doing it. Next slide. So I do want to be very, very clear. I've been picking a lot on Chairman Xi, and I think he deserves it. We do not have a beef, though, with the Chinese people, with the people of China. There is a very, very long and rich heritage and cultural history, 6,000 years, probably the oldest continuous civilization on the planet is the Chinese civilization. We have no disagreement with the people of China. They are actually probably suffering just as much under authoritarian dictatorship as we will if Chairman Xi decides now's the time for China to emerge as the sole dominant superpower of the world, and oh, by the way, I got the army to do it if I want to. So again, it's very, very important, I think, as we talk. I try to be very careful, and I think we all should as we're doing this, is that we don't say, China's doing this or the Chinese this or that, because it's not about the Chinese people. I consider ourselves, we're probably on the same side. They probably don't like living underneath authoritarian communist, Chinese Communist Party leadership. It is specifically, we are trying to change Chairman Xi's calculus with what we're doing up at Edwards Air Force Base with the capability that we're developing. And it's also a dire picture. I am actually optimistic still. Next slide, please. There are 2 books that go and build for me. So if you want to read more about kind of just the geopolitical situation that we're in, here's 2. So the one on your left by Brands and Beckley. They are professors at Johns Hopkins University. They are both fellows of the American Enterprise Institute, which is a conservative think tank, apolitical but conservative. The Danger Zone. They paint a no end of scenarios. It's very easy to imagine a series of scenarios that just result in World War III, to include, kind of the attacks on our critical infrastructure here. So this is a war. If this war happens, it's going to happen here. It's going to come to us. We are going to feel the effects. This is not just the people of Taiwan. This is not going to be like us watching the news and seeing what's happening in Ukraine. This is something that's going to happen here, and that's why we're having this conversation. So this one is probably scenario kind of scary. This one is hopeful, optimistic. So Kevin Rudd, he paints a picture of an avoidable war. So Kevin Rudd is the Australian ambassador to the United States right now. He was previously Prime Minister of Australia, and then after that, he was actually Foreign Minister. He studied in China. He's a fluent Mandarin speaker. He knows China very well. He understands Chairman Xi. He's actually written a second book just on Chairman Xi. He also knows the U.S. very well. He has spent time in school here in the United States as well, and has been the ambassador here. So he understands both of these countries. And so the avoidable war is his prognosis on how do we avoid World War III, potentially civilization-ending war between the United States and the Chinese Communist Party. Next slide. The other reason that I'm optimistic is because we're actually talking about it right now. So just like those cavemen, even before the Roman Republic, where they were stacking up their stones at the entrance to the cave just in case that other cave clan came by. We are preparing for war right now.
And that's part of the conversation that we're going to have here and that we're going to continue to have. And again, I love the way Congressman Fong said it, and Assemblyman Lackey is like, this is just the first conversation of an ongoing dialogue that we need to have about how do we be ready.